He's currently back in the Philippines as an independent consultant, writing and presenting technical lectures for the oil industry. Having had his fair share of living abroad and traveling for work, let's all welcome our own Brad, Mario Lasam, to talk about what it's like to be a geologist, working, traveling, and enjoying the world.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the nice introduction. Uh, Most of us, due to our profession, travel a lot. And so many of our members have traveled actually more than I. But thanks to Brad Money, he suggested that I present this topic about globe-trotting geologies. The intention of this talk is for us, especially the younger ones, to have an idea about working abroad, traveling, and enjoying at the same time. These will give us a preview of the places that you may visit one day. So here goes my presentation. This is the outline. So some background, why I was able to travel and the benefits of traveling and so on. I will be showing pictures of where I had been, and shown here in this slide are vintage pictures of iconic structures in Paris, France. The uppermost is the Arc de Triomphe. The middle one is Notre Dame de Paris, meaning Our Lady of Paris, a medieval Catholic cathedral, unfortunately destroyed by fire. And then the bottom is the Louvre Museum. The word Louvre originally was lupara or lupus, because the lupus means wolf, because the site location was actually a forest full of wolves. So you can translate literally the Louvre Museum as Wolves Museum. These are some bits of trivia you learn when you travel. Next slide, please. As a background, my first work was in PNOCEC with Brad Noe as my senior and mentor. Like what he said in the first talk, geologists tend to have their pictures taken either showing their back or side view. Here we are doing field work in Magat area, Cagayan Valley. This picture actually was taken from a PNOCEC calendar. And in this one, working na-feature pa sa kalendaryo. Next slide, please. So my second job is with the Philodrill Corporation, where I had my career break in the Octon discovery. After 5 years, I resigned and worked as a freelance consultant from 1992 to 2002. I did consulting jobs for many companies, sometimes having projects from 4 different companies. I had many travels officially and enjoyed company activities like sports, tournaments, training, and of course, parties at the same time. Next slide. After some time, I was offered a job in Sudan. This is a view of Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, East Africa. When I was there, this building in the foreground was not yet constructed. And also in Khartoum, the first true shopping mall was built. It's called Afra when I was there, complete with cinemas, groceries, shops, escalators, and bowling alleys for the first time. The Sudanese, both young and old, were terrified and screaming when they first experienced riding the escalator. But once they knew it was safe, they could not stop riding it up and down, back and forth. Of all the Arab people I have met, they are the kindest and easiest to please. Next slide, please. So Sudan was my first long-term job abroad. Shown here is the usual technical meeting of geoscientists from different nations. I work with Petrodar, the operating company, consortium of CNPC, Sudapet, the national oil company of Sudan, and Petronas. At the same time, I enjoyed my stay as an expat in Sudan by joining the Filipino Church Choir in Khartoum, joining a Filipino group called the Thursday Club, where we had karaoke, We played ping pong, bowling, we had parties. We even have cultural performances for the public and for the government. We also did Christmas caroling, and we also had some safari tours in Kenya. Next slide. Shown in this picture is the Filipino group when we serenaded the expat community with Christmas songs. Next slide. This picture is a view of the sunset at the back of our office. In the picture, there's the bridge which shows crossing the Nile River. This road is going to Omdurman, the old capital of Sudan. This picture was taken before I left Sudan for another job offer in another country. Next slide. So in this one, I was recruited by Halliburton to work in Angola. Shown here is Luanda Bay, very similar to Manila Bay, working again with diverse nationalities, Angolans, Chinese, Pakistanis, French, Europeans, and so on. I also enjoyed my stay as an expat because we had parties, karaoke, out-of-town trips, company team building activities, office birthday parties.
Green and
Next slide,
green.
please. Previous one, go back, please. Next, after this. Okay. It seems we missed one slide, but never mind, it's okay. So in this one, this is a trip outside Luanda. This place is called Miradoro da Lua, meaning moonscape. It's Angola's Bryce Canyon equivalent. It may not be as beautiful and colorful as the Hoodos of Bryce Canyon, but it is important economically. Here, I am pointing out the relatively young formations, which are the reservoirs of their giant fields offshore like Girasol, Dalia, Somba, and so on in the lower Congo Basin. Next slide, please. This is what we missed. This where we had the birthday party in the office. During this time, we have this birthday celebration for me. And for the Angolans, to have a birthday cake is very important. They even have a song specific for the cake celebration, in addition to the usual happy birthday song. So Angola being a former colony of Portugal, the language is Portuguese. So happy birthday in Portuguese is parabéns or feliz aniversario, while thank you very much is muito obrigado, and welcome, you are welcome is de nada. Next slide, please. So what enabled me to travel to many places? There are many job-related reasons, but three main reasons really enabled me to travel extensively. The first is the Octon discovery. It's the break in my career. And then number two, a proven track record of successful oil and gas field discoveries, which led to offers of better paying jobs. And number three, financial sufficiency because of better job compensation. Next slide, please. So even within the Philippines, I was fortunate to visit many places. For example, in this picture, this is a recumbent fold in Magat Dam site, Cagayan Valley. Such fold structures in the Philippine setting is not common, and this location may now be underwater or covered by the Magat Dam. Next slide, please. There are many nice sceneries when you are doing fieldwork. This picture was taken in the southern part of Oriental Mindoro, where the rustic scene has the steep mountains as a background. So when traveling, always bring a camera, useful for work and to capture unusual sceneries like this. Next slide, please. So speaking of unusual sceneries, this is a lucky shot. A picture of a boy silhouetted in the sunset while going home in Santa Ana, Cagayan. I can still recall the voice of his mother as if I was still there when the mother was calling her son to go home. Next slide, please. So in addition, when we travel officially for business, the side benefit as an unintentional tourist is always welcome. The picture shows the Eiffel Tower daytime and nighttime view in Paris, France. Next slide, please. So with good job compensation, you can afford to travel. This is a vintage picture of the Grand Canyon 2005 South Rim. Next slide, please. Part of traveling is encountering wildlife. In this picture, we had encountered roaming freely in the Grand Canyon South Rim these adult and young bighorn sheep, which are well adapted in the mountains of the park. Next slide, please. And the usual starting point of the Grand Canyon tour is Las Vegas. Las Vegas is like New York, the city that never sleeps, and more. There are plenty of fun shows and trying your luck at the casinos. But we enjoyed more the shows and concerts like this one by our very own Lani Misalucha. Next slide, please. We also had pilgrimage tours. Shown here is the Sagrada Familia Church in Barcelona, Spain by Antoni Gaudí. It was started 1882 by Gaudí. It was one-fourth finished 1926 when Gaudí died. It is projected to be finished by 2026 to coincide with the 100th year anniversary of Gaudí's death. But due to the COVID pandemic, it will not be finished on schedule. Next slide, please. So part of a West Coast tour, this is Bryce Canyon, Utah. And here we have plenty of hoodoos. Hoodoos are pillars or spires of rock, usually of fantastic shape, left by erosion by water, ice, and gravity. Limestone, siltstone, dolomite, and mudstone make up the different rock types of this Claron Formation, which is Cretaceous in age. Next slide, please. Then an East Coast tour starting in New York. This is the view of New York, the Staten Island from New Jersey side. Like anything else, your point of view differs as you change locations. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So speaking of locations, your view underground can be as nice or better than what you see in the surface. This is the Luray Caverns in Virginia, or Luray Cave. Some of our US-based broads and seas are familiar with these and have seen this cave, like Brad Atchett. An early Smithsonian Institution report concluded that there is probably no other cave in the world more completely and profusely decorated with stalactite and stalagmite ornamentations than that of Luray Cave. This Luray Cave also has a big chamber called the Cathedral, and in that chamber, they have the only known organ which is connected to the stalactite, and they produce beautiful sound, and they have sometimes many occasions done there in that area. Next slide, please. Also in the Nordic tour starting in Sweden, here we are showing the Nobel Prize Center in Stockholm, Sweden. We also went to the ABBA Museum and performed with the ABBA singing The Dancing Queen. So traveling is not only educational, it is enjoyable too. Next slide. Still part of the Nordic tour now in Iceland. These iconic Kirkjufell Mountains in Snæfellsnes Peninsula, Iceland, is the most photographed mountain of Iceland. Kirkjufell means church mountains, not a volcano, but built up of volcanic layers from several eruptions. This is very special as it is a glacial island located between two glaciers that shape its present form. Next slide, please. So here in Sweden, we also have the picture of the Vasa ship, which capsized and sank in Stockholm 1626. After 333 years on the seabed, the mighty warship was salvaged and its voyage was continued in the museum. So a very short voyage. Today, Vasa is the world's best preserved 17th century ship and the most visited museum in Scandinavia. Next, please. So what are the benefits of working and traveling abroad? There are actually many, but I underline three, which to me are the most important. One is sharing unusual experiences and pictures. Second is the opportunity to improve the economy of the country where you're working and perhaps also the community. And third is, for me, the best, meeting my permanent partner for life. Next slide, please. So before I met my wife, I traveled alone and fast. But when I got married, we traveled farther and in a lot more places than I can imagine. Next slide, please. Here, we traveled to California, West Coast tour. This is the Yosemite National Park picture showing the El Capitan. It's a 3,000-foot tall, 1.5-mile wide granite cliff that rises up from the present-day Yosemite Valley in central California. Next, please. And in a Vietnam tour, this is the Hang Sung Sot Cave in Halong Bay, Hanoi, Vietnam. It's one of the most colorful cave we have visited. And the surrounding area are made up of mainly thick limestone of Carboniferous age. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, here in the Nordic tour in Iceland, you can walk in between two tectonic plates. To the left is the North American plate, and to your right is the Eurasian plate. The road is the boundary. This Pingbili region is located in a rift valley created by the drifting apart of the two plates at the rate of about 2 centimeters or less than an inch annually. The plate boundary runs through Iceland. Next slide, please. This is Reynisfjara Black Sand Beach. Black sands due to the basalt outcrop erosion. The basalt columns were formed during the Ice Age. Next slide, please. Here in Kenya, when we had a safari tour, have you heard of the Great Herd Migration of Africa? Throughout the year, East Africa's wide open grasslands are the setting for the Great Migration as millions of wildebeests, zebras, antelopes, and other herd animals make the trek from the Serengeti in Tanzania to the Masai Mara in Kenya. Here, the great herd is gathering like an army with no commander, just waiting to move on. Next slide, please. Now, this is Lake Nakuru, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the most famous lake in Kenya. It is known for its flocks of flamingos. Their collective sound is hard to describe. Lake Nakuru is one of several alkaline lakes found in the Great Rift Valley and has been a national park since 1961. Next slide, please. Still in Lake Nakuru, it is also known for its endangered black rhinoceros. Here, a family of black rhinoceros is grazing with a rainbow at the background. Next slide, please. And then, still learning about culture, this is the Maasai jumping dance or adumu. It's a tourist favorite and it has been captured in endless pictures, videos, and documentaries. It is highly recognizable ritual of Maasai life, and the higher these warriors jump, the greater is their chance to win the bride they desire. Next slide, please. And learning about nature, I saw this plant with the impressive round flower when I was a young boy in our garden in Malabon. After more than 50 years, I saw it again, but this picture was taken in the Genting Highlands in Malaysia. So some plants or animals you have not seen at all for a long time can be encountered when you travel. Next slide. Still about nature. This unusual outcrop in Montserrat, Spain, looks like a castle from a distance. Montserrat, that word, by the way, means serrated. So when you get close to it, it's actually like a forest of weird-shaped rocks. This is due to the rock formations, which are highly indurated sand pebble conglomerate, which are strikingly pink in color. It's deposits from the fan delta of the Ebro Basin of Middle Eocene age. Located also in this area is the Santa Maria de Montserrat Abbey of the Order of Saint Benedict, Catalonia, Spain. Next slide, please. When we travel, impressive and unusual flowers can be encountered. This picture was taken in Singapore's garden by the bay. Traveling allows you to see and encounter what is unusual, beautiful, or unique. It is up to you how you see or view things. Next, please. And speaking of unique, this is the first time I saw and pictured a circular rainbow. This picture was taken in Baguio during lunchtime a few years back. The country where you go does not matter. What matters is what is there when you travel and if you recognize it. Next slide, please. Same as when we travel to Florida, riding an airboat is an experience, but being in a scenery so picturesque is another level of experience. Next slide, please. They said a picture can say 1,000 words, but it cannot convey all the feelings, emotions, ambience, and all other senses you can experience when you are actually there. So next slide, please. So with your partner, you will enjoy your travel immensely. Next slide, please. Enjoying the sunset with my family in Boracay Beach. Experiencing amazing moments with your family is truly unforgettable. Next slide, please. This is the Aurora Borealis in Inari, Finland. So our life as a traveling and working geologist is a journey. It's not only a journey through space and time, but a journey of experiences. It is a continuing journey. Next slide, please. So as a tribute for us geologists, let me recite this for you. Where there is oil to find or gold to mine, prospects to pursue or assignments to comply, in lonely deserted lands or untrodden wintry paths, a geologist will be there to climb the mountains or cross the seas, dissecting rocks with a sample pick, or discerning fossils and minerals with a lens. A geologist will be there using a microscope or crashing workstations on distant shores and faraway places, or living with nature and unraveling its past. A geologist will be there to discover secrets and find nature's treasures untold, marching through the earth, plumbing its deepest depths, or turning to the skies, aspiring for unexplored heights. The AFAG geologist will be there. Next slide, please. So when we travel, this is a suggest list of roles you can choose when traveling. It's patterned after Mohs scale of mineral hardness. And the memory aid is written at the left. The geologist can find and obtain quality traits cool doing. So would you choose as a role to be a talk, truthful and tactful, a gypsum, good and generous, or a calcite, competent and concise, perhaps a fluorite, fair and fabulous, an apatite, aware and altruistic, or an orthoclase, objective and optimistic, perhaps a quartz, qualified and quick, a topaz, tough and trendy, or corundum, cool champion, and finally a diamond, determined doer. So for your travels in life as an AFAG geologist, what mineral roles do you want to be? Next slide, please. To guide our choice of roles, let us be reminded of AFAG's core values, it is the same then and now. All of our core values need not be re-emphasized because as AFAG, we should have this in us. The emphasis for now are highlighted in the red boxes: global awareness, environmental involvement, social responsibility, nationalism. And for nationalism, let us be reminded of what the oblation symbolizes. It's selfless offering of oneself to his country. Next slide, please. So, going back to what was written first in the title page, an African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So as a geologist, whatever role you want to do in life, aspire to travel far and accomplish something well. It helps to have someone with you, to have a purpose, colleagues, friends, or a partner who will be with you, not always physically, perhaps emotionally or spiritually. It is not how far you travel that is important, but what role you played and how well you did it while traveling. Next, last slide. Thank you for your attention and thank you for your presence. Thank you very much, and we continue our journey. Thank you.